What if I told you that the last 30 years of your life and the next 30 to come were already mapped out in a cartoon? I'm not talking about a few lucky guesses or vague prophecies that could mean anything. I'm talking about a terrifying pattern of predictions so specific, so unnervingly accurate, that it seems to defy all logic and coincidence. For over 3 decades, The Simpsons has been the background noise of our lives, making us laugh with its iconic satire. But what if it hasn't just been making us laugh? What if it's also been showing us a scene-by-scene script to our own reality? You're thinking about the big one, aren't you? In the year 2000, an episode titled Bart to the Future casually joked that real estate mogul Donald Trump would become president of the United States. It was absurd. A throwaway line meant to be the most ridiculous scenario imaginable. Then, 16 years later, reality caught up with the joke and absolutely nobody was laughing. But what if I told you the Trump presidency wasn't the punchline? What if it wasn't the final prediction, but just the first chapter of the prophecy? A breadcrumb leading down a path that gets stranger, more specific, and more terrifying with every single step. Because the very same episode that joked about a Trump presidency also contained a chilling warning. A warning that feels like it's pointing directly at the world we're living in right now, in 2025. What if the writers, through comedy, accidentally stumbled upon a fixed timeline that is slowly but surely becoming our reality? Stay with me because we're about to connect the dots, and what we find suggests our future isn't as unwritten as we think. And the first dot is one that hits us all right where it hurts the most: our wallets. If you've ever looked at your bank account lately and wondered, why does everything feel like it's falling apart? You're not alone. But what if I told you that The Simpsons saw it coming long before the headlines did? It all starts with a stark warning about our money. The first and perhaps most urgent signpost on this bizarre timeline didn't come from a psychic or a Wall Street analyst, but from a single line in a cartoon that aired nearly 3 decades ago. It points to a massive, crippling economic crisis, and the clues it left behind are becoming a little too close for comfort. Let's rewind back to that same disturbingly prophetic episode, Bart to the Future. We see Lisa Simpson as president, finally in the Oval Office she so rightfully deserved. But this isn't a moment of triumph. This is a crisis meeting. She looks utterly defeated as she turns to her staff and delivers one of the most chillingly analyzed lines in the history of the show. As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. They didn't just predict the man, they predicted the economic fallout. A budget crunch so catastrophic that, as a shell-shocked Milhouse confirms, the country is completely broke. And here's the part that's almost too eerie to ignore. This wasn't just a joke. The writer later admitted it was meant as a warning, but if it was fiction back then, why does it feel so real now? Think about that. A gag about a celebrity businessman running the economy into the ground. Does that feel like a distant joke to you? Because sitting here in 2025, that punchline has lost all of its humor. We've all been crushed by staggering, relentless inflation and watched interest rates soar to terrifying heights. We've all heard economists on the news issue stark, daily warnings about global financial instability. Are you starting to see the frightening pattern here? How their joke became our reality. The episode's own writer Dan Graney later admitted the line wasn't just a random gag. He called it a warning to America. He saw it as the logical, disastrous end to a culture that was beginning to blur the sacred lines between serious politics and cheap entertainment. Now, a generation of fans is looking at the state of the global economy and seeing straight up prophecy. To be fair, the show didn't give us the exact date of a stock market crash or predict the price of gas, but it didn't have to. It planted the seed of the core crisis, a crippling budget crunch left in the direct wake of a Trump administration, a scenario that feels more terrifyingly plausible with each passing headline. But if you think a financial crisis is where this ends, you're wrong. It's just the trigger for what comes next. But if The Simpsons nailed the economic collapse, what else did they see coming? Because what happens after the money runs out might be even more disturbing. Keep watching. Just when you think the economy is the scariest part of this timeline, The Simpsons drops a political prophecy that feels like it was pulled straight from today's news. Brace yourself, because this one might just give you chills. A collapsing economy is only half the story, the foundation upon which the rest of the timeline is built. The show's predictions about the political landscape are even more specific, and this is where the story moves from unsettling to undeniably strange. As we just covered, Bart to the Future puts Lisa Simpson in the White House, cleaning cleaning up the mess. For 20 years, this seemed like nothing more than an optimistic feminist plot point, a nice what if for a cartoon. But then, as Kamala Harris was sworn in as the first female vice president, the idea of a woman leading from the Oval Office suddenly felt closer than ever before. But that's not the prediction. This next part is. And here's where it gets so specific, so weirdly accurate, that you have to wonder if this was satire or surveillance. What Kamala wore matched exactly. And this is where the hair on your arm stands up. In that episode, President Lisa wears a very distinct, very memorable outfit, a professional purple jacket, and a string of pearls around her neck. Now, fast forward 2 decades to January 20th, 2021. At the presidential inauguration, Vice President Kamala Harris takes the oath of office wearing a purple jacket and a pearl necklace. The side-by-side images instantly broke the internet. Think about the odds. Of all the outfits, all the colors, all the accessories she could have chosen, she chose that one. A coincidence? Or did the show somehow impossibly nail the exact inauguration outfit of a future American leader 2 decades in advance? Officially, the show's creators laugh it off, calling it a massive, hilarious coincidence. But for those who have been paying attention, for those of us connecting the dots, it's another critical piece of a puzzle that is becoming too clear to ignore. And just when you think they've peaked, The Simpsons throws in another wild card, a hint that a Trump dynasty might be on the horizon. Ivanka 2028? They said it before anyone else did, and we're not done. Because next, we're entering a world where machines are watching us, replacing us, and even thinking for us. Yes, it was a joke in a non-canon Halloween special. And no, as of right now, in 2025, Ivanka Trump has not officially announced a run for president. But the fact the joke even exists is what's so fascinating and disturbing. It aired at the precise moment the media was buzzing about the political ambitions of the Trump children. The writers once again captured a fringe what-if scenario and locked it into their fictional world, just waiting for the real world to catch up. It's another one of those deeply disturbing parallels that makes you have to ask, how do they keep doing this? And if they know our politics, what about the tools that run our lives? Still think this is just a coincidence? Wait until you see how The Simpsons predicted the very devices you're probably using to watch this video right now. This isn't just creepy, it's practically clairvoyant. If the economic and political predictions aren't enough to convince you that something strange is happening, then wait until you see what The Simpsons said about the technology we use every single day. Because its satirical vision of the future is now, piece by piece, becoming our present day reality. First, let's talk about the race to Mars. In the 2016 episode, The Marge Ian Chronicles, a private, corporate-funded company announces an ambitious mission to colonize the Red Planet with a satirical launch date of 2026. The episode perfectly skewers the emerging real-world Mars craze, the over-the-top corporate branding, the reality TV-style selection of astronauts. What's so incredible is the timing. It aired just as Elon Musk's SpaceX was exploding into the mainstream consciousness. The show didn't just predict the mission, it predicted the entire culture around it. As we sit here in 2025, watching private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin test the very rockets meant to take us there, the fiction feels less like a joke and more like a documentary. But here's the thing, they didn't just predict the mission, they predicted the culture surrounding it. Branding, ego, hype. Sound familiar? It's not just about where we're going, it's about what we're building and fearing right here on Earth. One of the single biggest anxieties of our time is the explosion of artificial intelligence. Well, in a 2012 episode, a fed-up Mr. Burns fires all of his human employees at the power plant and replaces them with cold, efficient robots. Sound familiar? It absolutely should. This episode aired years before anyone was even whispering the name ChatGPT, yet it perfectly captured the #1 fear dominating the job market today, being replaced by a faceless algorithm. The show predicted the core emotional and economic fight of our entire era, human versus machine. How? The warnings just keep coming. In a 2016 episode, Mr. Burns gives the Simpson family a set of advanced virtual reality headsets, and they get completely, hopelessly hooked, choosing a perfect digital world over their messy real life. The episode ends with the chilling image of the entire town of Springfield wandering the streets like zombies, eyes glazed over, each lost in their own private VR world. This was years before devices like the Apple Vision Pro were even announced, yet it perfectly predicted the exact ethical debate we're having right now about the metaverse, screen time, and digital addiction. They even predicted the glitches that would plague our new tech. In one episode, Homer gets a fancy new self-driving car that, of course, malfunctions and takes him on a terrifying, out-of-control joyride. A classic sitcom gag, right? It was until real driverless taxis from companies like Waymo and Cruise started hitting our streets. And then real news reports started popping up about those exact cars freezing in intersections, causing traffic jams, and behaving unpredictably. How many times can a cartoon joke become a real-life headline before you have to start wondering what's really going on? So what's next? The machines, the metaverse, or something even stranger? Because just when you think it can't get more bizarre, The Simpsons plunges headfirst into the unexplainable. Stay with me. You've seen the predictions that made you raise an eyebrow. Now get ready for the ones that make your jaw drop. These aren't just eerie, they're downright unsettling. Okay, we've covered money, politics, and technology, the logical pillars of our society. But if you think that's strange, the timeline also veers off the road and deep into the territory of the truly bizarre. These are the predictions that sound like pure, laughable fantasy until you see how they snap into focus with mind-bending connections to reality. Let's talk about zombies. In a 2009 Treehouse of Horror episode, a new fast food burger made from cows that were fed other cows turns everyone in Springfield into rage-filled, flesh-eating cannibals. Now hold on. Before you click away, no one is saying The Simpsons predicted a literal zombie apocalypse. But think about what they did predict. The anatomy of the anxiety. The story plugs directly into our deepest collective fears about food safety, unchecked corporate greed, and the terrifying speed at which a new pandemic can spread. After living through the global nightmare of COVID-19, this episode doesn't feel like a parody anymore. It feels like a documentary about our deepest fears of a contagion spinning wildly out of control. And it gets weirder, because even their most ridiculous mascot may have leapt into our world. Remember Blinky, the three-eyed fish? He's real. And finally, we have to talk about the patron saint of all Simpsons prediction, Blinky, the three-eyed fish. Caught way back in 1990 in the river near the Springfield nuclear power plant, Blinky became the perfect, unforgettable symbol of corporate pollution and its grotesque consequences. For decades, he was just a funny, iconic cartoon fish. But then, impossibly, it happened. A real three-eyed fish was reportedly caught in a reservoir in Argentina. A reservoir located near, you guessed it, a nuclear power plant. The real world had created a carbon copy of their cartoon symbol. The parallel was unbelievable, but the story doesn't end there, because it happened again. In 2023, after treated wastewater was controversially released from the damaged Fukushima nuclear plant, Japanese officials held a televised press conference where they publicly ate fish caught from the area to prove to the world that it was safe. This event was eerily, scene for scene, similar to the episode's climax, where Mr. Burns holds a press conference and tries to eat the three-eyed fish, Blinky, to calm public fears. The writers didn't magically see a specific fish or a specific press conference. They created a symbol so potent, so perfectly aligned with our anxiety, that reality was almost destined to repeat it. Blinky is the ultimate proof that the most absurd things from this show are never too far from becoming real. So, what if even the jokes that seem too ridiculous were actually warnings in disguise? And more importantly, what's the next absurd gag we should be worried about coming true? Let's wrap this up, because what you're about to hear might change the way you watch cartoons forever. Still watching? Then you're probably wondering what else is buried in this cartoon time capsule we call The Simpsons. But here's the thing, we've barely scratched the surface. And if this video has you second-guessing reality, you're not alone. So what do you think? After seeing all this evidence laid out, where do you stand? Are these just thousands upon thousands of lucky guesses from a brilliant team of Ivy League comedy writers? Is it a classic case of life imitating art on a massive planetary scale? Or after more than 30 years of being right, time and time again, with terrifying specificity, is something else, something much stranger going on here? Join the investigation, drop a comment below and let me know which prediction you find the most convincing or the most terrifying. We read every single one, and if you want to keep exploring the mysteries hiding in plain sight all around us, make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring the bell for all notifications. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. From the crisis meetings in Lisa the Simpsons Oval Office, to the cold, automated floors of the power plant, from the corporate-branded plains of Mars to the polluted rivers of Springfield, The Simpsons has painted a picture of our world that feels less like satire and more like a documentary with each passing year. We've seen its throwaway joke about a budget crunch echo our own deepest economic fears. We've watched its sharp satire on AI, VR, and the private race to space become our daily lived-in reality. This relentless, unnerving, terrifying pattern of accuracy feels like it has to be more than coincident. It demonstrates a profound, almost supernatural understanding of human nature, our flaws, our ambitions, and where our choices were always inevitably going to lead us. The writers have always insisted they're just satirists, not psychic, but as their gags keep turning into our global news, you have to wonder, as we navigate the uncertainties of 2025, it's impossible to shake the chilling feeling that we've seen all of this before, played out for laughs in a cartoon. Question is no longer, can The Simpsons predict the future? The evidence is simply overwhelming. The real and far more chilling question is, what have they predicted that's coming for us next, that we just haven't noticed yet?